What are you doing? Hey, stop!
Tonight, the jeweller who risked his life to stop a high-speed getaway. Will you know the gold robbers? Hello, I'm Kirsty Young, and I'm delighted to be joining the Crimewatch team. We're live. This is our new pad. I hope you like it. I'm surrounded by the UK's leading detectives, all hoping that your call is the one to solve a major crime. DC Rav Wilding is here, as usual. Evening, Rav. And I am really pleased to welcome another new member of our team, Matthew Amrellawala. Matthew, each time we're on, you're going to be looking at some of the most intriguing solved cases.
Well, tonight it's the case of the Clapham killer and how a secret trail of lipstick in a London cemetery led police to the murder weapon and put this killer behind bars. It's an amazing story.
It is incredible, actually. I've seen the film, and it is a perfect illustration of how just one call from you, from a Crimewatch viewer, can get to the bottom of a big case. Also on the show tonight, were you in the Newcastle nightclub when this man here was murdered? Someone must have seen something. And what about this? Who stole this? It is a Leonardo da Vinci painting worth a staggering, wait for it, 40 million quid. Can you put a name in the frame? Well, our first case tonight is a gold robbery, £75,000 worth of Indian gold jewellery, to be precise. It was stolen in broad daylight just before Christmas. The job was planned, very carefully executed, but despite a daring attempt to try and stop them, the robbers are still on the run. Rav takes up the story.
December. A father and son fly in from India. Their aim, to sell gold jewellery throughout shops in Britain. It was a trip they won't forget in a hurry.
Stop!
The men deal in 22-carat Indian jewellery, selling to a network of clients all across England. Whenever they're in the UK, they stay in Wembley and borrow a vehicle and driver from a friend to help them get around.
Listen, this new customer we're going to see, now he's a little bit tricky.
I can deal with tricky customers.
I know you can deal with tricky customers, but what I'm saying is that when it comes to discussion on money...
You don't trust me.
No, I do trust you, but what I'm saying is you can do the presentation.
So let me do it.
Well, let me start the money discussion, and then you can pitch in. OK, we'll leave it at that.
Come on.
That's good.
With lots of buyers to see, this father and son team went to work. After leaving London in the morning, the men headed north to shops in Luton, then Coventry, and then finally onto more in Leicester. They carried with them 2 laptop bags full of gold Indian jewellery, and we're talking 75 grand's worth.
Here we go, Belgrave Road. Look, there's the restaurant over there.
Ah, fantastic. I'm starving.
OK, why don't you go and get yourself something to eat?
No, honestly, I'm fine. You carry on. I ate once you were at that last meeting.
Well, we won't be long. You just stay with the car. OK.
You enjoy.
Yeah.
That was quick.
Well, they don't serve any vegetarian food in that restaurant. I know another place down the road. Let's go there.
I think we've got a problem with the wheel. I think we've got a flat tyre.
Oh, you're joking. Oh, no.
Have you got a spare?
Yes, I have a spare in the boot.
Well, let's get on with it.
No, it's okay. You two go and eat. Don't worry. No, don't worry. I will take care of this. Oh, bloody hell.
With a new tyre on the wheel, The next day, it was business as usual.
Dad,
Yeah?
what time should we start tomorrow? How many people are we seeing?
I think we've got 3 appointments tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
So if you start at
all at a
9:30...
standstill.
How about a little bit earlier?
Do you want to start early?
Yeah, let's get on, because...
Excuse me, mate. You've got a flat tire, did you know that?
Oh, you're joking. Thanks very much, mate.
It's okay.
I can't bloody believe this.
What's the matter?
Apparently, we've got another flat.
But I thought you said you had it changed.
I did. I went to the garage first thing this morning. It's a brand new tire.
But can we not get it changed now? I mean,
Yes,
because...
we will have to.
Where can we pull over? We're going to need to change it.
We'll go down this road and turn left as the traffic moves. I know the little place around here in the corner.
The driver pulled off the busy Harrow Road at Bourne Terrace and pulled over here in Senior Street. 1 wheel, 2 days, 2 flats. Coincidence? I don't think so.
Seems likely someone had tampered with that tyre.
Dad, could you get out of the car a second? We need to jack it up.
Oh, right, OK.
So let me try.
Before getting out of the car, the father hid the jewellery from view underneath the driver's seat.
Try it. Ooh. Let me loosen it up. Let me get it on first. 1 second. Hold it.
Okay, you got it.
Let's go.
Okay,
Feeling the cold, he then moved round the corner to get out of the wind.
okay. Yeah.
Okay. Try it.
Okay, so mind your thumb. Here, let me take it down.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I got it. I got it. Yeah, go. Give it to...
Dad?
Try it.
What are you doing?
I'm just staying out of the wind.
Hey! Hey! Hey, stop!
Stop! Hey! Stop! Stop! Stop him! Stop him! Stop him! Hey! Hey! Let's go! Let's go! Come on, let's go! Hey! Hey! Get up! Do that! Get up! Get up! Do it!
Although incredibly brave, his desperate efforts to recover the jewellery were in vain. He was left with a badly injured shoulder, severely scratched legs, and the knowledge that his family's livelihood was gone.
The reality is, this could have killed him. How did these guys know what they were doing? Had they been following the car? Had they tampered with the tyres? Had they known about the gold? It just doesn't add up.
And he was a brave bloke, wasn't he? Well, DC Ira Tremblay is in charge of the investigation. 2 days, 2 different cities, 2 flat tyres. That seems like more than a coincidence, surely.
There's a possibility that the victim has been followed. It has to be more than a coincidence that there were 2 days, 2 flat tyres. We need to appeal to anybody who has seen the suspect vehicle, which is the blue Vauxhall Vectra P366 LLK. If anybody has seen anybody tampering with the victim's car with the tyres, or any witnesses to the incident itself.
OK, now let's take a look at this E-Fit. Give us a description of this bloke. We saw him there in the film. What more can you tell us about him?
What I can say is he's between 5'8" and 5'10", 35 to 45 years. He's of Indian or Asian origin, stocky build, with a round face, possible moustache, and he was wearing a dark suit. Also, we need to find the driver of the getaway car.
Do we know anything about the driver? Any useful description of that? Or?
Unfortunately not.
Right, OK. Well, that leads us, of course, to witnesses. I mean, as we know, we saw it there, broad daylight. There must have been lots of people around just going about their daily business.
There are lots of flats around. There were lots of pedestrians on the road. There's a building site nearby. There's also a school. Maybe parents have picked up their children. A taxi driver was seen on CCTV as witnessing the whole incident, and there's also a passenger who's a pedestrian standing on the road, and he was taking a photograph with his mobile phone.
Right, that could be vital. Now, let's take a look. This is the sort of jewellery that it was. Very, very ornate Indian jewellery in 22-carat gold. And there was a lot of it, because there were 2 of those computer cases. Does it have any defining marks if anybody's been offered it for sale? Is there any way they could work out that it is the stolen stuff?
They have all definite hallmarks that can be identified on. There are different pieces of jewellery. There are necklaces, bracelets, earrings, so they would be easily identified.
Ira, thanks very much for all the information. Now, that alone is worth £3,500. So do call us then, 0500 600 600, or you could call Crime Stoppers. The number for that is 0800 555 111. Or you could, in fact, log on to our brand new website. The address for that is bbc.co.uk/crimewatch. Here it is, in fact, right here we've got a brand new website. As well as details on all of tonight's cases, you can now, for the first time, watch all the reconstructions on this website again. And there's the wanted faces and CCTV footage as well. And Rav, in fact, let's have a look at it, has done a special feature with top tips on how you can avoid being a victim of crime and what to do if you witness a crime. The site's going to constantly be updated, so for news on how the cases are progressing, you no longer have to wait till the next programme. Now, with some of the UK's most wanted, here is Rav.
Yep, take a good look at this lot. First up is Sean Devouder. Now, he's wanted in connection with a failed attack on a cash-in-transit van using a loaded firearm. Devouder may be staying in hotels or private accommodation in the north of England. Now, he's 21, goes by the nickname Tusk and has strong links to Salford, Prestwich and parts of Bolton. Now, there's a £5,000 reward leading directly to his arrest, but he's very dangerous, so if you see him, don't approach him, just dial 999. And number 2 is Hussein Salah. Now, he's wanted in connection with a robbery in Enfield back in 2003. He was charged, but failed to turn up at court. Salah, who sometimes calls himself Farhad, is originally from Somalia and has connections in London. And number 3 is this chap here, Wayne Terry. And he's wanted after police discovered a cocaine factory in Waterlooville, Hampshire. The drugs were worth 60 grand and had been transported from Brazil, hidden in spices. He's 36, has connections to Slough and may be working in the building trade. And Anthony Hamblett is our number 4, and he's wanted for a series of distraction burglaries across East Anglia. He's believed to target the elderly using a range of excuses to get into their property. Known as Tony, he also uses the alias Michael Carter. He's got a number of skin grafts on both arms where he's had tattoos removed. Hamblett's got strong links to Sidcup in Kent and King's Lynn in Norfolk. So do you know where any of these are tonight? Well, don't wait, phone or text. The number is on the screen now.
Now, you'd think that a murder committed in a crowded place would be, well, relatively easy to solve with all those potential witnesses. You'd imagine it'd be quickly game over for the killer and case closed for the coppers. Well, not so in our next case, the murder of David Charlton in a buzzing Newcastle nightclub. Tonight, his lovely fiancée Alison and the rest of the family desperately hope that someone watching is going to do the right thing. They hope you're going to come forward and tell us what you saw.
This is Gray's nightclub in Newcastle.
For over 25 years, this place has been part of the late night club scene. Now it's the scene of a murder investigation.
What's that in your hand, David?
Nothing.
Give us a look.
No, it's a secret.
Are they real diamonds?
Yeah, it's an engagement ring.
For?
It's for your mum, Scott. I want to ask her to marry me.
Oh, yes!
Have you ordered the drinks yet, David?
Look at this, Mum.
Stop.
Oh, what is it, love?
Go on, ask her.
What's going on? David?
It's an engagement ring, Alison. Will you marry me?
Yes.
Hope this fits.
Yes.
It was really one of the happiest nights of my life, just all being together as a family and the start of our future together. David was like a father figure to Scott. He really loved him. From day one, they hit it off. they were inseparable. Sometimes I needn't have been there, really. I just treated him like his own son.
Careful.
I had planned a night out with my friends, and David with his friend, and we went into Newcastle together, shared a taxi, and then went to our own ways when we got there.
How are the wedding plans coming along then? Great. We've got the house and we're getting the keys next week. Next stop, the wedding chapel. Great. The next drink's on me. That's it for me. I'm off, mate.
I'm going to stay for just one more. I'll give you a call next week. Right, I'm off home.
But David Charlton never made it home. He never made it out of the nightclub. He never made it past the foot of these stairs. David Charlton was taken to hospital and died from his injuries.
Just the world's been absolutely shattered and everything, future taken away, that you think how quickly your life can change from just a normal everyday life to your world being torn apart. We should have been planning the wedding, not a funeral.
David Charlton is an honest and decent family man, but I don't believe his death is an accident. This is a murder investigation. This is the last time David Charlton is seen by CCTV. 18 seconds later, at 2:28 a.m, he lay dying. I need to find out what happened in those 18 seconds. If you were here, it's possible you could help. To get to the stairs where he died, David had to leave through this doorway. Two men were standing here all night. Was it you and your friend? We know you arrived together at 1:23 a.m. You wore a white t-shirt with the number 13 on it. Your friend was Scottish. Later he asked the doorman for direction. You're definitely not suspects, but are witnesses. Standing here, what did you see? What did you hear? Next, two ladies, two purple cowboy hats. We know you arrived at 1:27 a.m. Did you see David Charlton? Did you notice anyone acting aggressively? An hour after you arrived, we know there was a flare-up right here. A man was held in a headlock. But who was he and who assaulted him? It's 2:29 a.m, nearly the end of the night. David Charlton is dying on the stairs. A woman heads in that direction. 15 minutes later, you're in the smoking area. It's 2:44 and it's clear you've seen something. What or who did you see? A good man has died here. I need you to get in touch.
He was the love of my life and a soulmate, and I just feel as though I haven't got any future. There's no future lies ahead anymore, that it's all been suddenly taken away. Trying to explain to Scott why he's never coming home when he's waiting for him coming home from work. and that he's never coming home. Keeps getting excited because he wants to go to heaven to see David again. We're just never ever going to be able to accept what's happened and that our lives have been destroyed.
That's unbearably sad, isn't it? DCI Mark Anastasia is leading the investigation. I mean, what on earth happened in that club? How did David die?
David Charlton had been out for a drink with his brother-in-law, and towards the end of the night there was an incident at the top of the stairs where two people were involved. And as a result of that, in about 18 seconds, David had gone from the top of the stairs to the bottom of the stairs, where he died of severe head injuries.
Right, there is some progress. You've arrested 2 people.
Yes, 2 persons have been arrested and are currently on bail.
OK, so let's talk about the people we need to find. We saw most of them there in the film. Let's take a look at them again, because these people are vital. They hold the key to the killers. Let's take a look now. We can see, first of all, these 2 chaps, both in white T-shirts. One of them's very distinctive. It's got, is that a 13 there?
Yes, 13.
So he's got a 13. The other one's got this sort of open neck white shirt. And you can tell us something interesting about when they were leaving. What happened?
Yes, the one with the open neck T-shirt had a Scottish accent, and he asked for directions to Key Point, which is student accommodation in Newcastle.
Right, so you must know who you are if that's where you were heading to, probably heading home at that time of night. Let's take a look at other witnesses then. There we are. These are these 2 girls. They're wearing these rather sort of fabulous cowboy hats with the rhinestones or the sparkles around the outside, purpley hats. Can't see them in that picture. The woman's wearing a halter neck, the black halter neck. Her friend was wearing a white T-shirt. You think they're vital?
Yes, that's right.
OK, let's see who else have we got here. Now, this lady, we saw her in the film. In the film, she was holding a cigarette. She's gone out away from the dance floor for a cigarette. She's wearing a necklace that's got a big sort of disc on it. She enjoyed a cigarette, and then she pointed as though she'd seen something. You think that moment might be vital?
Yes, again, at the end of the incident, she's pointed to something. We need to see what that is.
Now, there was one person who wasn't in the film. This is a young lady. Tell us more about this.
Yes, towards the left-hand side of the picture at the bottom, there's a blonde-haired lady wearing a white top. This is after the incident outside the nightclub. We need to know what she said or heard.
OK, and they might be out-of-towners. That's the important thing. So far, local publicity hasn't unearthed them, so they might be out-of-towners. Bear that in mind, anyone who's watching. Please do call us here in the studio. You saw that appalling film. If you've got any information, 0500 600 600, or you could text us. The number for that is 63399. You type crime, space, and then type your message. Or you could go to the website, you saw it earlier, if you want to see the reconstruction again and check out some of the witnesses, bbc.co.uk/crimewatch.
Now, some good stuff coming in on the phones. I'll update you on that in just a bit. And still ahead, who stole the Leonardo da Vinci painting worth £40 million? Tonight, can you put a name in the frame? And we're behind the scenes to look at how police caught the notorious Clapham killer. This is him. He thought he was above the law until a secret lipstick trail in a London cemetery gave police the gun, and that allowed them to nail their man.
Now, here's a question for you. What type of person is it who goes to a busy park in broad daylight, armed with a homemade spear, and rapes a young girl? We've a number of good clues, actually, so hopefully tonight someone watching is going to have the answer. The case dates way back to April of 1990. New developments in DNA have enabled police to reopen the investigation. The victim is still, unsurprisingly, traumatised, but she has very bravely agreed to talk us through what happened.
The Honeybourne line, Cheltenham, a disused railway track that is now used as a thoroughfare. Locals will remember it as the scene of a notorious crime that has remained unsolved for more than 17 years. Many people reported a man acting strangely that day. He followed a number of women and even exposed himself to a young family. He went on to ruin a young woman's life.
There were lots of people. There were people cycling up and down the cycle path. There was I remember seeing a mother there with her children, a group of teenagers. So yeah, it was quite busy.
Be quiet. Shut up.
He had a weapon on him. It was quite a thick, sharpened stick with a nail in it. Looked very threatening. I just didn't know what was going to happen. I've never been put in a situation where I didn't know whether I was going to live or die.
Shut up!
I didn't know what he was going to do to me, what he wanted to do to me. I didn't know, but I feared for my life.
Don't say a word. Do you understand me?
He undid my blouse and he hitched my skirt up. He removed my underwear and then he proceeded to rape me. And one thing that always stays in my mind is that he asked me to sit back and enjoy it. For a long time it did affect me, the way I was. I didn't go out for quite a while. It just knocked my confidence, my self-esteem. I just felt worthless at the time. And it just left me feeling really sordid and dirty. I just wish I could turn back the clock, and I know deep down that I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it just really hurts me still, and I'm always going to remember it. It's just going to haunt me for the rest of my life.
Well, Professor David Cantor is with me. He has produced profiles for over 200 cases and has developed the field of investigative psychology for the last 20 years. Thanks for taking the time to join us. The first question, I suppose, from me must be, what sort of person does this sort of thing?
Well, that's, of course, the real nub of the whole thing, is that this is a very strange individual in a number of ways. He's taking a lot of risks because he's there at the time, throughout that afternoon, seen by a lot of people. He exposes himself. It's very unusual for people who expose themselves to go on to attack. And the whole style of his activities seem to be really having a lot of risk associated with them and really not indicating that he really knew what he was going to do.
I see. 'Cause this is risk then, not because he enjoys risk, but risk because he hasn't properly thought through the whole ordeal.
Well, that seems to be the impression that you get from the witness statements, that this is an individual who's wandering around that area. And one of the interesting things is that most of the witnesses come from around that area. They come from around the Honeybourne track. And so it's very likely that he was around that area as well. So people might have recognised him. But so far, the police haven't been able to get an identity, although they've got DNA for this individual.
Is he likely to be of pretty low intelligence then? Can we work that much out?
Well, it seems that he's not very bright. I mean, he's taking lots of risks. He's left all sorts of forensic evidence. People could identify him. We have the photo fit, the e-fits for him. And that suggests that really he's not somebody who would be regarded as very bright.
Back then in 1990, would you have any idea of how he would have made it to the scene? I mean, would he have driven, would he have walked? Most likely as what?
It seems very likely that he wandered into this area the way everybody else did, that this was an area that people came on a hot April day, and he would have been aware that there were lots of people around, and you get the impression he's sitting around waiting for the opportunity. That's what happens with these sorts of offenders, is that they're waiting for the moment that they think is right, and then it's almost an impulsive act.
So he hadn't really planned it, would that lead you to believe that he's generally the sort of person who doesn't plan things and might be a bit chaotic and random in his behaviour?
Well, he would certainly be somebody who would be known on occasion to be impulsive, to be somebody who wouldn't do something that may be seen to be out of character. This may be one of the reasons why the police still haven't identified him after 18 years, even though, as I say, they've got the DNA, because people who know him may think that he's not the sort of person who would carry out this sort of serious attack.
Let's take a look at it. Well, let's call it a spear, for want of a better description. It's pretty crude. It almost looks like a child could have made it.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It is.
I mean, this is the actual one, I should say.
This is what he used, and it really has a remarkably adolescent or childlike quality to it, which suggests this is possibly a rather immature sort of person. I mean, he's 30 years old at least from the witness statements, may be a bit older than that, and that's really quite old to be carrying out a sexual assault like this. So it suggests that this may well be somebody who's known to be a bit immature in his ways. 30 years ago, when he was 30 years old, 18 years ago.
Right, and that's one of the difficult things, isn't it? People have got to think back to then. This is somebody who may now have gone on to develop relationships and be a bit more straightforward.
That's right. I mean, these people can grow out of these sorts of habits. They can find somebody who they can settle with, and it changes their styles and way of dealing with things.
David, thank you so much. Look, if you have got any information, then please do call us here in the studio. The number 0500 600 600. If you've been a victim of rape or indeed any other crime. For confidential help and advice, there is the victim support line. That number, 0845 30 3900. The details on this case are also on our website. Indeed, if you're interested in criminal profiling, it's known as, there is a more in-depth interview with Professor Cantor about this case, bbc.co.uk/crimewatch. Now, here is Rav with the latest on some of last month's cases.
Yep, first up is the horrific murder of Heather Barnett, found mutilated in her Bournemouth home. You recall the case, the killer left hair in Heather's hands.
After death, the killer has dragged Heather's body through to the bathroom where he's used a scalpel to remove her breasts. He'd also placed head hair in both of Heather's hands. This was not plucked head hair, this is cut head hair that the offender had brought with him to the scene of the crime.
Well, following forensic work, police now know the owner of the hair travelled to 3 specific areas of America and Europe in the months before Heather's murder. Now, amazingly, 2 women from Bournemouth came forward to say they had travelled to those specific places. Forensic tests on their hair are ongoing now, and we'll be sure to keep you updated. Now, we're also looking for this man. This is William Cannon. The RSPCA were desperate to trace him after 6 dogs and these 34 cats were found crammed into this tiny caravan in Yorkshire. Now, after the programme, the RSPCA got a tip-off that Cannon and his partner, Anne Timmons, were at a campsite in York. When they got there, sadly, the pair had moved on. We now believe they may be camping in Yorkshire. So take another look. He may have changed his glasses and possibly his hair. If you spot him, please do call us, and there's more details on the website.
Now, I've got some good calls coming in, I'm hearing, especially on the Harrow Road. You remember the Indian gold jewellery, that very elaborate jewellery that was stolen. We've had an interesting call. In fact, it's from a policeman saying that he had investigated a very similar crime where the tyre had been punctured. If you know any more, do call us. As I said earlier, each month on Crimewatch now, we're going to be taking a look behind the scenes at some of the most intriguing cases that police have solved. Matthew, this first case you're going to tell us about, I mean, if we saw it in a Hollywood movie, we'd say, come off it.
You're absolutely right. This is the case of the Clapham murders, a double murder, a notorious case. Now, this man thought he was above the law, but the families never believed that, the police never believed that, and viewers of Crimewatch never believed that. So this is how the police finally cracked this case.
Years ago, this street became a crime scene. It was a case that shocked the nation.
I'll give it to Righty now. Come on.
At around 9 p.m, William Kwame Danso was at home watching football with his friend when there was a knock at his door. At the same time, a local bobby, PC Patrick Dunn, was dealing with an unrelated domestic incident in the house directly opposite.
Shots fired at Cato Road. Get back inside.
In less than a minute, 2 men were dead. Father of 4, Kwame Danso, shot for showing disrespect to his killer, and 44-year-old former schoolteacher PC Patrick Dunn, shot in the heart for simply being a police officer.
Information very quickly identified a man called Gary Nelson as potentially responsible for this double murder.
Gary Nelson was well known to the Met Police. Since the age of 15, he clocked up numerous convictions for extreme violence and firearms offences. His nickname was Tyson because he shared the heavyweight boxer's heavy build and incredibly short fuse.
What? Out of my face! Get out of my face!
Gary Nelson was certainly at the top of the criminal hierarchy. He was very well respected by other criminals, highly feared by an awful lot of them. He was certainly operating at the highest criminal level.
Detectives had Nelson followed. Sensing he was being watched, he opened fire on an unmarked police car that was tailing him and was arrested. This is the actual arrest footage from Islington Police Station that night.
You don't have to hold me. Just let me go and walk myself, man. Fucking hold me. Fucking hands up.
During an argument about his unwillingness to remove his clothes so they could be examined, Gary Nelson makes an unbelievable statement.
Don't go in that room now and take them off. You will be taken in that room and your clothes will be removed. That's the end of the conversation.
Right, can you enjoy that? Can you enjoy that?
I won't be doing it, mate. That's really making what's doing it.
Watch this. Mr. Sergeant, watch this. I'm copied like that one, fucking copy.
Nelson believed he was above the law, yet the police were sure he was their man. But there was a problem.
It was extremely difficult to get anybody to come forward and give evidence against him. And this was one of the major stumbling blocks in the original investigation.
Although formally charged with the murders in November '93, police had insufficient evidence and charges had to be dropped. But weeks later, the police got an unexpected breakthrough. An anonymous call told how the murder weapon had been buried somewhere in Wandsworth Cemetery. Police came and they searched, but they couldn't find the gun anywhere. But the anonymous caller came to their aid again. Remarkably, she returned to the cemetery and left a trail of crosses in lipstick that led police to the exact place where the gun was buried, with X marking the spot.
There were 2 weapons found in the cemetery. Both were positively identified as being used in the murders. They were wrapped in a plastic bag which had the fingerprint of a member of Gary Nelson's family on it. However, that still wasn't enough for a prosecution to go forward.
With no new leads, in 1996 the investigation was wound down. 5 years later, Detective Superintendent Steve Richardson reopened the case.
We needed something concrete against Gary Nelson. We needed new witnesses to link him to the killings. So that's why we went to Crimewatch.
Watching that night was a former inmate of Wormwood Scrubs prison. As the reconstruction of the Cato Road murders began, a memory stirred. By the next morning, he decided to do the right thing, and he called the police. In the mid-90s, he and Nelson had shared a cell, and Nelson had shared a secret.
I was in prison with a man called Gary Nelson. He told me he'd done the Cato Road killings. Yeah, he said, I shot the copper.
It was a revelation that was to turn the investigation on its head.
I actually took the phone call from that witness, and I knew that it was going to be an extremely important piece of information that, if we could turn into evidence, would ultimately hold the key to charging Gary Nelson.
Nelson was put under round-the-clock surveillance. Police learnt a lot. Nelson was a womanizer, a fitness fanatic, and police believe a drug dealer, extortionist, and gangland enforcer. He'd accumulated a fortune and developed a love of top-of-the-range cars and designer clothes. He was infatuated with guns. His motto in life was,
"Gun is might, and might is right."
He kept a Browning 9mm semi-automatic pistol, which he called my special thing. While under surveillance, he even travelled to the States to buy a laser sight, a favourite tool of the hitman. His love of the gun and his violent tendencies brought him much influence, but also many enemies. He often wore a full set of body armour, and at times he even felt the need to sleep in it. Thanks to the lipstick trail in the cemetery, which led to the murder weapon, the explosive confession of the former inmate, and now the revealing surveillance operations, police were finally ready for Nelson to face trial. What started here in Cato Road in '93 finally ended in Woolwich Crown Court in February last year. Having eluded the police for 14 years, Gary Nelson was found guilty of both murders.
This was 13 years of investigation through 2 investigating teams, many officers. The family had lived the experience day in, day out, and still continue to do that. And it was an extremely emotional moment and huge relief when the jury foreman actually stood up and announced guilty verdicts against Gary Nelson. This was probably one of the most satisfying moments of my career.
When the verdict was read, I was relieved. And I thank God.
After the court case, I couldn't believe how much lighter and freer I felt. I didn't realise how much of a burden this was, the constant meetings with the police and the constant fear that the whole thing might collapse. And to be driving to work to know this man was inside, I felt, there you go, Patrick, there's justice for you.
Incredible story, long, hard road to conviction. What it shows, above all, is that just one call to us can really crack a big case like this.
Yeah, it was the key piece of the jigsaw. Let me also give you one more example of just how dangerous this man is. This is actual police footage that they've given to us of when Nelson was transferred to be charged. Now, look how many police officers it actually takes. Anything but a normal transfer, as well as helmets, body armour, they are all armed. Now, here's the moment, Kirsty, that the charges are actually put to him.
I'm arresting you for the murders of William Danzo and PC Patrick Dunn on the 20th of October 1993. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you don't mention one question, something which you later rely on in court. Understand?
That's got nothing to do with me.
Anything you do say won't be given in evidence.
Pretty unusual to see that sort of footage. How long did he get?
35 years.
It's going to be out when he's about 70.
Yeah.
Good news for everyone. Let's hope we have the same success with Rav's next batch of the UK's Most Wanted.
Let's hope so. This is number 5, and we think his name is Iftikhar Ahmed. Now, police want to speak to him in connection with a suspected rape in Hulme, Manchester in 2006. He's 22 and around 5'4", and he's previously lived in Oldham and used to work at a newsagent also up in Hulme. Number 6 is Martin Lacey, and he's wanted in connection with a violent assault on his ex-partner in November. Lacey's 34, 5'9", and has strong links to Blackburn. If you see him or know where he is, don't approach him, just call the police. And number 7 is Terry O'Leary, who's wanted for conspiracy to supply Class A and C drugs. He's also known as Terry Porter and has connections in Lincolnshire and Essex. And he's thought to be a regular in the pubs in Dagenham and Romford. Now, you have seen number 8 before. We appealed for him last July in relation to an assault in Plymouth, in which case a young woman was slashed across the face and stabbed in the neck. And we thought his name was Saeed Ahmed, but now we know he's actually called Ahmed Shiri Ismail. Last month, he was seen getting off a lorry in Plymouth, which just arrived by ferry from Spain. So take a good look. He's 6 foot and has extensive scars across his chest. So have you seen Mr Ismail or any of the others? If you have, get dialing 0500 600 600.
Ralph, thanks very much. Have you seen this painting? It is of the Madonna and the Yarnwinder. It's by Leonardo da Vinci. Well, actually, I should say this one isn't. This is a copy. The original is worth a staggering 40 million quid. Back in August of 2003, it was stolen from Drumlanrig Castle near Thornhill in Scotland. It was a huge case, gained international attention. The robbers and the painting disappeared. That is until last October, when the painting was recovered by police in Glasgow. With me now is Dick Ellis, formerly of Scotland Yard's Art Theft Squad. You really are the expert on this sort of stuff. Tell me, how many Leonardo da Vinci paintings exist in the world?
Far more drawings than there are paintings, only about 23. And some of those aren't finished, so it's a very, very rare item.
I'm
to see a Leonardo.
Amazed by that figure. Is that why it's so expensive?
Yeah.
Between 30 and 50 million pounds this would fetch at auction.
Absolutely.
And this is not the first Leonardo to be stolen.
No, in 1911, perhaps the best known, the Mona Lisa was stolen from the Louvre in Paris when an Italian house painter walked in and walked out with it under his smock and then caught the bus home. So it wasn't a high-powered robbery, but...
Couldn't do that now, of course, surrounded by glass and alarms.
Absolutely.
When you do recover a painting, I'm thinking that I'm a huge fan of the Thomas Crown Affair, both of the movies. How do you go about authenticating something as special as this when you get your hands on it?
The really well-known paintings are going to have a provenance, they're going to have a record, and you compare that and you can build on that using scientific methods. So subjecting the painting to infrared technologies allows you to see under the paint, where you'll then actually see the original drawing that the artist would have made and then applied the paint over it. So that's...
And that couldn't be faked by somebody because they wouldn't know what was underneath.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly.
And is it the case that all these wonderful little cracks that we see on the old masters, I've heard, I don't know if this is true, that it's almost like a fingerprint. It's as good as a fingerprint because it's as original as a fingerprint.
Yes, if you've used high-resolution photography or macro photography, where you're really enlarging the photographs, you'll pick up the crackling of the painting, and that in itself will act like a fingerprint and won't be able to be replicated by a forger, for instance. Other methods, you've got some diagnostic techniques that you can use, where you can look at the pigments and analyse the pigment and actually determine where the metals that help make up that particular colour originated from. So if you've got an old master and you find your lead white has originated in Australia or the States, you know you've got a forgery.
Trace it in that way. I'm sorry, I could listen to you all evening. It's so fascinating. I don't have an old master, but if I did, I'd have learned a lot about it. Thanks for that. With the painting then safely back, police still need to find out who stole it. They want to trace the owner of this car that was found abandoned in woodland near Drumlanrig Castle. It's a dark blue Rover 620. Registration number is N770JLP. Where was it between March and October 2003? Detectives also have CCTV of a man that they are keen to identify who was in the castle on August 15th, 2003. If you know who he is, or if you can tell us anything else about this case, then do call us 0500 600 600 or call Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111. Our next case seems totally random, without motive. Lynn and Kevin Norwood ran a guest house in Southsea. Never thought twice about opening the door, even late at night. Indeed, they saw it as part of their job. But one night in November 2006, the doorbell went. What happened next has changed their lives forever.
Hello, it's the ambulance service. Do you require assistance? Yes, been stabbed. Right, okay, who's been stabbed? It's me and my husband.
Well, it all started off as a dream. It was just a dream, what we thought of years ago. We wanted to run a guest house. Getting up at 6 in the morning, must be mad, but 7 days a week. It wasn't easy, it was hard, but it was just something I loved to do.
I'd help out, put my pinny on and help, and I'd go and do a bit of the cleaning. If I could avoid it, obviously I would.
Here you go, love.
Oh, thanks. Pop it there. I think the shower's gone in number 6 again.
I'll have a look at it. Leave it with me.
And I'd generally get finished by lunchtime. My day was my day. So I'm waiting for people to come in at night time and that. But that was it, really. It was just something I really loved to do.
you expecting anyone, love?
No.
I'll just leave it.
Maybe it's Mr. Evans forgetting his key again. Don't worry, I'll go.
It wasn't unusual, it had happened before. I would generally go and answer it, especially if I knew somebody was out.
You got any vacancies?
Sorry, we just don't let anyone in after 9.
And as I opened the door then, they just burst through the door with a carving knife.
Get out of the way! Get away! Come out! Come out!
Kevin! Kevin! And Kev come running out the door because our bedroom was just alongside the corridor, and he come rushing out, and I couldn't even say that they'd got a knife. And he just got it all, and I couldn't help him, and that's not what that was walking stick in the hallway, and I couldn't even do anything. I'm sorry, I just couldn't help him.
Go on! Get
Okay.
Then there's a big mirror in the hallway, and I just happened to glance at it, and all I saw was red.
His face was all... it was all cut, and there was blood everywhere, and then he just sort of collapsed on the stairs.
Oh, sit back. Sit back. Let me hear in a minute.
It's okay.
They stabbed me on my hands and on my finger, but I'm lucky, really, to what they did to Kev.
Had a cut that went from there all the way down to there. It was quite deep. Needed about 30 stitches, I believe. Apparently lost 1 litre and 3/4 of blood.
From the handprints on the wall, from the fact that there was blood on the phone, you get the sense of struggle. People literally fighting for their lives. If you're talking about horror, for people in their own homes, it would be a horror, because they couldn't give us an answer or a reason as to why anybody would want to attack them.
They didn't ask for anything. They didn't ask for anything at all. So I just want to know why. I just don't feel safe at all, and I didn't feel safe in the guest house.
We just couldn't put up with it any longer. So unfortunately we had to sell in order to get our lives back together, really.
It's not the same anymore. It's just not the same.
Acting DS Tony Flanagan is with me. Any idea of the motive for this attack?
We have no idea at all, Kirsty. I mean, Kevin and Lynn, we don't believe that they were deliberately targeted. We don't think the guest house was, or any of the other residents there. The suspects left empty-handed. So what was their motive? We don't know.
What do you think about the 2 black guys? What do you think they were up to that night?
Well, it is possible that they could have links to R&B clubs that are nearby. Were they from outside of Portsmouth? Were they coming down? Were they looking for a room from which to deal drugs? We don't have any reason to believe that they did that, but it's a possibility.
This woman in the white puffer jacket, she wasn't involved in the attack, but she saw the attack. She could be key.
She could be key, she could be local. It could be that she met the 2 men on the night in question. She wasn't involved in the actual attack. She didn't go inside the premises. We'd like her to get in touch, or if there's anybody out there who knows her,
We really would like her to get in touch. 0500 600 600. Now, here's Rav with some villains caught on camera.
And it would really get my new year off to a good start if we could get some of this lot. It's Labrooks in Headingley, Leeds, and this man's just won some money on the fruit machines. But you wouldn't bet on what he's going to do next. He seems harmless, armed only with a bag of exotic fruits. But when he spots the manager with a cash box, he makes a lunge for it. There's a struggle. She ends up on the floor. He grabs the cash and heads for the door. Nice close-up. We've got his face and his bag of fruit. Now we need a name. Next, a gang of train robbers. Over 100 cameras have caught them terrorising passengers in a series of attacks across the network, mainly in East London. They're often armed with knives and after phones, wallets, laptops and anything else they can get their hands on. Last April, at Fairlock Tube on the Central Line, they target a group of teenagers. They follow them up to the platform before closing in. They intimidate, threaten and once on the tube, rob them. They'll attack several times a day and often lash out. At Mornington Crescent in March, this commuter's punched in the face, breaking his jaw, before he loses his phone, camera and cash. They're prolific and dangerous. They need to be stopped before they do someone some serious damage. A summer night in Crawley, Sussex, and this man's loitering outside Bar Med. He looks relaxed enough, but within minutes, this happens. The victim was glassed and doctors had to stitch his cheek back together. He was lucky not to lose an eye. The bouncers booted him out. Police need to bring him in. Short cropped hair, distinctive pink t-shirt with Rouen written on the back. Who is he? The man in the red jacket seems to be looking for something. He spends half an hour circling the streets of Camden, North London last September. Here he is on a 214 bus, but it's not long before he's back on the street. A few minutes later, at 6 AM, police believed he dragged a young woman into a cul-de-sac and raped her. Have you seen him on a street or bus near you? One call is all it takes. So, do you know any of them? You know what to do. 0500 600 600. Remember, you can text us on 63399. Just type crime, that important space, and then your message. And if you need another look at tonight's CCTV, it's on our brand new website, bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch. Now, just a time for a quick roundup of what's been happening on the phones tonight with Matthew.
Rav, thanks very much. Some really good calls coming in. Let's start with the Newcastle murder, first of all. Two of the women that we appealed for, well, they have come forward from the nightclub. Also, one of the men has phoned in. The Cheltenham rape case, a lot of calls. We've been given a number of names. And the gold theft, several sightings of the jewellery for sale. More on the update programme after the news. Now, though, back to Kirsty.
Thanks, Matthew. Our phone lines are very busy, but they are open until midnight tonight and from 7:30 tomorrow morning. Crimewatch is going to be back on Wednesday, the 20th of February. Don't go away, though. We are back after the news with an update. If you've seen anything or anyone that you have recognised tonight, then please don't sit on the sofa thinking that someone else is going to call in. It could all be down to you. Pick up the phone now. Please do. I'm going to see you at 10:40. For now, though, bye-bye.